All right, so I am back. Um, that wasn't so great. So basically, very quickly, what happened was um, that I showed some stuff from NBC and other websites that I wasn't allowed to show. So I will still be talking about it, but I will not be showing it because then I do not want to get the stream shut down. Okay, anyway, so just to recap here, um, NBC News, they have an article on how Hong Kong is, potentially going away sooner than expected. China is mulling an anti-protest law, and pro-democracy legislators in Hong Kong on Friday hit back after Beijing introduced a new national security law, one that would limit protests and dramatically reduce the territory's autonomy. This is something that um, people have been protesting in Hong Kong for quite some time now. I'm sure we're all, you know, very well aware of this. But Tanya Chan is quoted saying, "This is the end of Hong Kong, and it's like the end of our homeland." And this was said at the start of China's annual National People's Congress in Beijing, where the bill was set to be discussed. She's also quoted as saying, "I recall the time when I was young and I believed in one country, two systems. And I believed we were going to showcase to the world that Hong Kong people can rule Hong Kong," she added. "But now I'm not yet 50 years old, and suddenly that is all gone." The territory was handed to China after British colonial rule ended in 1997 and has been governed by a unique model aimed at guaranteeing freedoms not granted by the mainland. China's National People's Congress, which is the country's annual grand political convention, where major policy is passed by the ruling Communist Party. It announced on Thursday that it would deliberate a bill on establishing and improving the legal system and enforcement mechanisms for Hong Kong in order to safeguard national security. This bill would allow China to sidestep the territory's own legislative body to crack down on activity Beijing considers subversive and represented a major turning point. Unfortunately, it is widely expected to pass. Now more than ever, we're seeing a lot of backlash against China. This is something that Trump's been pushing for, or with starting with trade tariffs and now going into whole coronavirus aspect. But it is sad to see that this kind of thing is happening, and our hearts are all out there with the protesters in Hong Kong, and I just hope that this kind of thing doesn't happen to Taiwan, which is trying to show more independence now. So we're going to kind of move on now to the next article. We're talking about education. Uh, you know, some of you may be excited for this, some of you may not be excited for this. But colleges are dumping online SAT and ACT tests, which is fueling an anti-testing movement. There are a lot of colleges which are uneasy about standardized tests being taken online from home this fall and are dropping their requirements for the exams altogether. This is fueling a movement to eliminate the high stakes tests from admissions decisions altogether. The latest was from the huge UC University of California system, where regents voted Thursday to suspend the ACT and SAT mandate through 2024 as the school attempts to develop its own test. Standardized admissions exams will be completely eliminated in 2025 in the elite public system, which actually currently enrolls 291,000 students. The UC system joined some 80 colleges and universities that have announced this year they will not require standardized test scores for this fall, either permanently or temporarily, as the test makers prepare for online exams if high schools remain closed. Cornell University suspended its test requirement for fall 2021, and so have all public universities in Oregon and colleges including Washington and Lee University, Davidson College, Fordham University, Vassar College, and Tufts University. Altogether, More than 1,200 schools say applicants can skip the tests, including those who have made the move before the pandemic. You know, I standardized testing is good and bad. It allows schools to be able to just blanketly give something to everyone so that way they can see and actually compare. But with that, there's a lot of issues in the data. Not all people are the same, and no two people take tests the same. And some people may or may not be able to easily go and be in that kind of environment to take the tests. It's very difficult and it's very stressful to do. And tests are not a performance of academic performance. There's a lot more that goes into it than just testing. And I think getting rid of it to some degree is actually a really good thing. Again, for the fact of the matter that it's not the best thing for everyone. Moving on to some business news. Recently, as of Friday, Hertz has joined the list of many companies filing for bankruptcy. It is the latest victim of the sudden and economic downturn, which was sparked by COVID-19. Honestly, I'd say it's a little bit more than a downturn. We're headed towards, or we're in a recession, at the very least, potentially heading towards a depression. Now, Hertz has been renting cars since 1918 when it first set up shop with a dozen Model Ford Ts, or Ford Model Ts. It has survived the Great Depression, the virtual halt of the U.S. auto production during World War II, and numerous oil price shocks. By declaring bankruptcy, Hertz says it tends to stay in business while restructuring its debts and emerging a financially healthier company. So, just for everyone out there, so you know, declaring bankruptcy does not always mean that they're going out of business. It can mean a lot of things. In the case of Hertz, it's restructuring. Bankruptcy just allows them to move through some, I guess, loopholes in order to better get out of debt, as well as liquidating assets and just moving into a better position. It allows them more flexibility. But also, most likely from this, their CEO and executives will probably be either losing their jobs or be getting a huge pay cut. The stockholders are probably not very happy about this, or even shareholders altogether. But they're quoted saying the impact of COVID-19 on travel demand was sudden and dramatic, causing an abrupt decline in the company's revenue and future bookings, said the company's statement. It also said, while it took immediate action in response to the crisis, uncertainty remains as to when revenue will return and when the used car market will fully reopen for sales, which I can't say that word, necessitated today's actions. Also, I really wish I could show you guys these articles. Maybe Facebook is going to be a little bit more lenient next time, but YouTube definitely is not. Also, onto the kind of elephant in the room, coronavirus. BBC had an article on it this week where it talks about all the 50 states are moving towards reopening. That is not amazing. Right now, or I guess as of Wednesday, Connecticut became the final state to lift restrictions when it gave the green light to shops and restaurants under certain conditions. But there is the issue of wide discrepancies remaining between each states in terms of infection rates and the pace of their economic restart. Many of the federal guidance on how to reopen, including a 14-day downward trajectory of cases, have not been met. DC is expected to announce its reopening this next week. And countrywide, the US is seeing an overall downward trend in new cases and deaths over time. But that is mainly because some of the hardest hit areas, including New York, New Jersey, and Washington's, are showing the sharpest declines because they have actually done a good job to flatten the curve. And actually, Oregon has done a great job as well. And a lot of our counties are actually already in phase 2 of reopening because they haven't had an uptick during phase 1. But while most of the states have reached plateaus, still some states like Arizona and North Carolina continue to report increases. a lot of the states that are having the most drastic reopenings are also the ones that have not had downturns at all. So it's just a matter of seeing how long this is going to take and, you know, whether or not we're going to be seeing reupticks. Another big issue with the reopening is how do you limit travel to and from your state? Because if you have people coming from out of state, Arizona or North Carolina, which are reopening and are having increases, and then they're now moving to or traveling to Oregon, Washington, New York, that's just going to re-increase the spread and create a phase two. And honestly, our federal government response has been poor, and we need to look to places like Germany, Canada, South Korea, any of those countries which have handled it very well, Taiwan, um, and follow their example. So from now on, we're going to be moving over to a little bit uh, better and more uplifting news, some tech news, everyone. Tech news. I love tech news. Uh, Apple glasses, that is a thing. It is not like the Google Glass. It is actually a little bit different. So, Apple glasses, what are they? They are the latest product from Apple. They haven't been officially announced. It's just leaks and rumors right now, but they are coming out, and it is pretty definite. The leaks come from very reliable sources, and they are an augmented reality or AR set of glasses. Basically, what it will do is it'll have heads-up display where we'll be able to view messages as well as, control your Spotify music, or in Apple's case, Apple Music. And there's a lot of interesting stuff that can come with this. We have yet to see what fully is going to come from the Apple glasses, but they aren't as expensive as you would think. Apple being this kind of luxury brand, you'd think they're somewhere in the, you know, 200 or $1,000 range because a lot of VR headsets range from $200 on the cheap side to $1,000 with the Oculus Quest being $400 to $500 price point. Apple glasses, $499 plus a prescription if you need it. Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think that they'd be too worth it. I mean, $500 for a pair of glasses is expensive, and they're going to be very limited in their functionality at first. Apple is really trying to make a point of making it look streamlined and like a normal pair of glasses, so a lot of the functionality is going to be for your phone. This kind of replicates the Apple Watch, which with its first generation, a lot of its functionality had to be paired to the phone, and when you didn't have your phone with you, that went out. But as time has gone and technology has developed, Apple has done a better and better job of making the Apple Watch more autonomous from your iPhone. And I think it'd be very interesting to see kind of how the eyeglasses, airframes, Apple glasses, whatever they're going to call it, uh, becomes removed. Let's hope this isn't one of, the whole Google kind of mess ups, but that being said, Google's were a little bit ahead of their time, as well as also being very clunky to look at and not very fashionable. Other AR/VR glass type things were the Snapchat Spectacles, HoloLens, or Magic Leap. Facebook is currently working on some more AR glasses, same with the company Niantic. This is going to become a very crowded market very fast. I mean, Google is no longer in the game, but the one benefit with what Apple is doing is that they have, they're in almost a different marketplace because they have their own ecosystem that doesn't necessarily work with everything else, and people trust the Apple name. I myself am an Apple user, but also, I have my own desktop with Windows and stuff that I built. So I'm not fully into that, and I can understand why Apple may succeed in this where people like Google hasn't. They already have the infrastructure, software, and kind of a closed both software and hardware system that a lot of manufacturers don't, which then gives them the advantage. So that was the tech news, and finally for our last two articles, which I may be able to stream because we are the PSU Vanguard, and it is our own one and only articles here. So let's see, and let's take a quick look at this. So, uh, Title 9, the new Title 9. Um, Basically, there's been some changes happening to both federal and state agencies when it comes to PSU. Title IX, under the Education Amendments Act of 1972, is one of the primary laws protecting students against gender discrimination in schools and universities and against sexual misconduct, harassment, or assault. Um, this is pretty important that there are some changes coming here. But on May 6th, the Department of Education released changes to Title IX regulations, which narrowed definitions of sexual misconduct and broadened the requirements of cross-examinations to be in person. The changes were announced to Portland State students the next day in an email announcement by Julie Carsons, the PSU's Title IX coordinator and interim vice president for global diversity and inclusion. Currently, Title IX covers three primary types of sexual misconduct, the first being quid pro quo misconduct, where one offers benefits of or advantages in return for sexual favors. The act itself doesn't need to count as misconduct, but only the offer and remains relatively unchanged by the new regulations. It also covers all types of sexual assaults, and the new regulations have broadened the definition to include dating violence, domestic violence, stalking, and requiring all of it to be addressed by universities when it happens. But the most notable of all the changes is to the third type, this being defined as sufficiently severe, persistent, or pervasive that it may adversely affect a student's education or creates a hostile and abusive educational environment. That was the original definition, but under the new regulations, it has been narrowed to unwelcome conduct that is severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive. Actions now qualify or need to qualify as all three in order to fall under Title IX. In the past, we were looking for persistent or pervasive under Title IX, and it needs to be all three. Unfortunately, as Karen said, it makes it difficult to address the conduct in some situations. Our article goes much more in depth than I will today, but it is kind of disappointing that these definitions have been narrowed. It just leads or causes the coordinators and PSU to be able to investigate less. It makes it slightly disappointing, and I hope that this doesn't adversely affect students too much, and hope that we're still able to make it a good environment for all students. But our last article, last but not least, as you can see, it has something to do with food. Can you guess what it is? Quarantine Cuisine by our one and only Nick Gatlin. He's actually the co-host of Situational Significance. Go and check it out. But quarantine. We're all in quarantine. We've been in a lot, and we're all cooking more. We can't go out to eat, which is honestly saving us some money, but we need to have some recipes. A lot of people have been baking. Sourdough is very easy to do. Banana bread is also a huge thing now. I personally love banana bread. Maybe I'll make some today. We will see. But as Nick Gatlin has posted, he has some good quarantine recipes. First of all, garlicky rosemary smashed potatoes. Very yummy. It looks actually very delicious. I might have to try this myself. But fresh potatoes, smashed up, nice garlic, rosemary, and thyme. Ooh, do love some fresh herbs. That'd be really good to go along with, I think, maybe a nice pasta or even steak. Having a good rosemary steak that's even grilled or pan fried would be quite delicious. Moving on to our homemade French onion dip. 16 ounces of sour cream, 4 large yellow or sweet onions, apple cider vinegar, sugar, garlic powder, and olive oil. Smashed potatoes are good, but also you need some dip. If you're gonna have some chips or even the garlic smashed potatoes, why not have some additional yummy, yummy dip to have with it? Moving on, there is the perfect chocolate chip cookie. I am terrible at baking cookies. I can make banana bread, and that's about the extent of my baking skills. But cookies, every single time I've done it, they've always turned out hard and like hockey pucks. Hopefully, this will be different. I believe in Nick's skills as a cook, and I'm excited to try this out, and it looks very delicious. Um, ooh, never using brown sugar. That is interesting. So instead of doing that, just use straight up molasses and straight up regular sugar instead of doing brown sugar. Hopefully it'll be sweeter. Um, yeah, so those are some of the recipes. If you have any recipes yourself, please go ahead and send them in. We would be very interested to try them and, maybe doing a cooking version of the live stream someday. But that is all I have for now. These were our quick news stories. I am very sorry about, not being able to show you the articles from the other web pages, but, next week we'll figure something else out, find a way to not just have you staring at my face the entire time during the live stream, but this has been a wonderful time. Make sure to read all the PSU Vanguard articles at psuvanguard.com. In addition, we have some podcasts that you can go out and listen to, architecture, as well as your own mind and situational significance. They are all a lot of fun. Check them out. It is a good time. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching or viewing this, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.